Well, Sean, I've just returned from my Italian holiday, and
Yeah, yeah.
Italy is where all the beautiful people go, and me and my wife as well. And it's a strange thing. I've noticed this strange phenomena that I've not really noticed in this country before, and it might be because we were visiting tourist hotspots. But as you can imagine, in the Italian lakes, there's lots of lovely sort of gardens and houses and castles and all sorts of things, which lend themselves to photo opportunities. And you'd either get your camera out or your phone and snap away quite happily. Some of them would be dreadful, and maybe 1 in 50 would be something you might share with a friend or something. But what I noticed, and it's really, really pronounced in this lakes area, is that mainly young people, but there were a lot of youngsters dressed up to the nines. They'd obviously been to the best shops that they could afford and really sort of made an effort. And in the case of the ladies, made themselves up. In the case of the gents, slick back hair and all the rest of it. And this is the heat of the day. And they would take ages posing and then reposing and then looking at what they'd taken for their sort of snaps. And I thought, well, what's going on? And a lot of them had these selfie sticks that stand up alone, and it's almost like a mini studio. And then it dawned on me.
I nearly bought one of those a couple of weeks ago. Ozbots, one of the main brand is called.
Okay.
Because I thought they'd help if we went out and recorded, out and about, because they're outside broadcast, but they don't swivel. They swivel on one side, but they don't swivel around. I was hoping if you started talking, it would whiz round to you. But anyway, sorry, I digress.
No, that's fine. But anyway, so what I would call a big production was going on, and I sort of sat there and I thought, these guys aren't taking in the scenery. They've just come to this beauty spot, and presumably they're on holiday because, this is in the working day. And it's all about the look at me culture. It's all about, I've got to look my absolute best and I've got to be able to publish this content. And I don't know whether these people were the so-called influencers or not, or whether they were just youngsters feeling this pressure of having to display themselves in this way. And it got me thinking that no wonder in this country, and no doubt across the whole of Europe, if not the world, the young are sort of demonstrating higher degrees of anxiousness and poor mental health, if this is what they're doing. And, whatever happened to enjoying the moment, being in the moment, enjoying where you are, enjoying the scenery, and good manners. That's another thing I noticed. And one particular lake we were on, I think it was Lake Iseo, we visited this beauty spot, and there was this like pergola with a beautiful view out onto the lake and some very colourful flowers either side. And this young couple were in there, and they were in there for ages doing this production. And there were people sort of clearly wanting to get their shot, but there wasn't a degree of consideration as to other people would like to use that location. And if I'd be bothered, I would have gone up there and said, look, come on, you've had your turn, shift.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that would have translated too well. But anyway, so there was a bit of me to think, well, maybe this is the reason for some of the causes of anxiousness about young people feeling they've always got to look so great, because some people falsely are pretending that they do. And then, funnily enough, while we're away, out comes Sakia's ban on social media platforms for the young. And I thought, well, I'll take a look at the headlines. I mean, you'll know this already, but worth recounting them. So basically, the top 3 things is under 16s will be banned from the major social media platforms soonish. So they won't be allowed to hold accounts in the likes of TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, X, YouTube, Reddit, etc., etc. And the idea is that obviously this would reduce young people's exposure to harmful content and bullying and addictive, what do they call it? Doom scrolling. You heard that expression?
Scrolling. Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a doom scroller?
I am sometimes. If you're on your TikTok and you're going through
never
and
ending,
through
isn't
and through.
It? Never ending. Never ending. So maybe it's not just young people.
Well, that's true. I won't take you off your subject matter, but that's very true, isn't it? That this is as prevalent for middle-aged and older people, anybody for that matter, as it is for the young. It's a societal problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, you stopped you in your flow.
No, there's 2 other points, and I won't drain them because the debate is more interesting. But the other, so the under 16s ban was clear. Stronger online safety restrictions for all under 18s. So, that's to stop communication with strangers, particularly for young people, and also inappropriate application of AI, for example. And all these measures are expected to take effect next year and will require some sort of age verification. Now, there's lots of data, as you know, that the social media providers can use even now to verify someone's age, but that'll all need to be looked into. But as regards, it will be an absolute responsibility of the platform to verify age, with presumably ultimately, if they didn't, the government having the sanction to ban that platform altogether or something like that.
Yeah.
So, it's an interesting one, isn't it? There are some good things that have come out of social media, but if I link the two things together, my observations of these, young, beautiful people on holiday, but literally obsessing over how they look, to this ban, I'm sort of coming around to it and saying, I can see why. And just one other anecdote, and then we have a chat about it, but we were in this villa, which has featured in both Casino Royale, the James Bond movie with Daniel Craig, and one of the Star Wars prequels. And it's a beautiful place. I cannot describe it well enough, but there was this young family there with a lady, I would say she would have been 12, 13, stuck ridiculously to the nines. She was overposing, and what looked like her sister was taking all these pictures while her mum and dad looked on, and they were blocking a stairway. And it was obvious that I wanted to walk past.
Yeah.
And the guy had the indignity to say, do you need to get through? And I thought, I've paid the same amount as you have. But
Yes.
they were using this particular thing because it was quite nice. So I thought, come on, what happened to just get out of the way?
And were these all local Italian people, or were they sort of multinational?
A mix.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the Starmer's debate. So there's been some noise coming out of Australia who introduced this a little while ago that, the kids are getting around it by virtual private networks and getting other people to verify their age. A bit like buying booze, isn't it? You get your older mate to do it and things like that. So, I think, well, yeah, maybe. But if we can learn from that, it sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? Stopping the kids from going on these platforms.
Yeah. I mean, the argument that Starmer countered with, you may not have heard this because you may have been in Italy at the time, was that that they can get around getting hold of booze and cigarettes, but it doesn't mean to say that we don't have a law to prevent the vast majority of them doing so, and to express society's wishes that they don't do so. And it gives a lead, doesn't it, to parents to try and avoid their kids getting onto social media as well. So I think I can understand. I mean, I really am torn on this because I was having a conversation with my other half, and there is this balance, isn't there, between the good that it does and the harm that it does. Because for a lot of young people, I mean, they interviewed some at school the other day. I don't know whether you saw that particular interview. And there was one girl who they asked, well, once it's banned, what are you going to do? Because she said that she was on there for 7 hours a day. And she said, stare at a wall for 7 hours, which I can understand that. If it's something that it's so important in your life. And the good thing about it, I suppose, even though it's the same thing that's the bad thing about it, is that it gives kids access to their friends outside of the house without having to leave the house. And it gives them the opportunity to talk to people from foreign, from abroad and widen their horizons. There were dangers in town, but I suppose that's the same as wandering the streets, isn't it? There are dangers in town. You can't legislate to avoid the fact that there are going to be people out there who... So, I don't know. I think clearly, politically, and from a societal perspective, parents are all in favour because I think if I'm blunt, I think it sees they don't feel that they can handle this issue on their own. And this is taking the responsibility away from them to a degree, isn't it? And saying this is a blanket ban. Australia, as you said, they found that some of the kids are now going onto the dark web and getting their,
well, that's what the platforms are saying, is you'll drive kids away from, like them or loathe them, regulated platform providers to unregulated free-for-all providers, and you won't know what your kids are engaging with.
No. So what do you think? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that we're...
My gut instinct is to say I think it's a good thing, but I think it doesn't solve the underlying problem that you mentioned, your 7-hour example, and there are many, many more. It might not be as extreme as that, but 1 or 2 hours a day. Is that why is it that kids haven't got more engaging things to do than spend hours on this? So I think there remains that societal challenge, and there'll be some parents who wouldn't admit to it, but probably quite like plonking Junior in front of an iPad and not having to worry about them for 4 hours.
I think what's quite, what you open this conversation with, what's quite frightening is the fact that people in general, there's a huge percentage of, and the adult population, who don't live in the here and now. They live, they go to a concert and they're watching it through their phone rather than watching it, or a sporting event. Or how do we get away from it? This is just ridiculous, isn't it, really?
I don't think you can. There's that famous 2 pictures of the Pope, the first, I've forgotten what they call it now, when the Pope is announced and he's on the balcony for the first time.
Yeah.
There's the famous one from yesteryear where everyone's just applauding or waving or something. And there's the one more recently where everyone is holding up a device, and exactly what you just said. And we may do that ourselves, It does beg the question, I know we've got to wrap this in a second, but it does beg the question, though, all of a sudden you become 16 in a day. What happens then? Does it all just go boom? And then what about the adults? Your mum and dad and your 13 and 12-year-old are sitting there staring at the wall after having done their homework. And mum and dad are still
on the phone.
So there's all sorts of social issues, but so instinctively I'm with it. But I can see all sorts of unintended consequences. And if anyone's listening who was posing while I was trying to enjoy my Italian holiday, think better of it next time.